Board of Selectmen's virtual meeting of September 2nd, 2020. I'm going to start the meeting by reading our preamble that we do with each of these. Good evening. As Chairman of the Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen, I am declaring that an emergency exists, and I'm invoking the provisions of RSA 91A:2-3B. Federal, state, and local officials have determined the gatherings of 10 or more people pose a substantial risk to our community in its continuing effort to combat the spread of COVID-19. In concurring with their determination, I also find that this meeting is imperative to the continued operation of town government and services, which are vital to public safety and confidence during this emergency. As such, this meeting will be conducted without a quorum of this body physically present in the same location. At this time, I also welcome members of the public accessing this meeting remotely. Even though this meeting is being conducted in a unique manner under unusual circumstances, the usual rules of conduct and decorum apply. Any person found to be disrupting this meeting will be asked to cease the disruption. Should the disruptive behavior continue thereafter, that person will be removed from this meeting. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. So we'll start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. And when each member states their name, please state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. I'll start with Linda.
Yeah, I'm in a room right now by myself. My husband may come in and get things from the room since it's gotten a little cooler, and so we don't use quite as much space. So I'm by myself right
now. Hey, Dave Senical.
Yeah, I'm in my office. I am by myself.
Dave Bowers.
I'm by myself. Wife Christy may wander in and out, possibly.
Paul O'Brien.
Yeah, good evening, Paul O'Brien. I'm in the room by myself.
And Brad Harriman here, and I'm in a room by myself also. Okay, first on our agenda, Mr. Pino, do we have a need for non-public session this evening?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. We do. RSA 91A:3, Roman numeral 2, lowercase a, employment, lowercase d, consideration of acquisition, sale, or lease of real estate, and to review non-public minutes.
Thank you. Next item is a consideration of minutes of August 19th, 2020. Do we have any comments or corrections we'd like to make on these minutes?
now. Right,
Linda?
I have. Yeah, on page 16, it is the first paragraph under committee reports. It is second sentence, the subcommittee meeting of the Wolfeboro, take out Wentworth, Wolfeboro waters. And
Okay.
then the sixth line down, it should be effluent, EFFLUENT.
Yep.
And those are the only two I have.
Okay. Anybody else? Paul?
Same area in committee reports. I had mentioned that we still had no word from our dear friends at the state, and I think the word in the minutes was works. So just replace the word works with word. Other than that, I'm fine, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Alyssa.
Anybody else have anything? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we accept them as amended.
A second.
The motion is second to approve the minutes as amended. Any discussion? Do a roll call vote. Linda?
Yes.
Dave Senical?
Yes.
Dave Bowers?
Yes.
Paul O'Brien?
Yes.
And Brad Harriman votes yes also. Okay. Next on our agenda is a public hearings, temporary event permit. We have a temporary event permit for the Wolfeboro Fire Department to host a 9/11 memorial on 9/11/2020 from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. at the Public Safety Building on South Main Street. Do we have somebody going to present this? Or are you going to present this, Mr. Pinio? Or
I believe Chief Scansey has just logged on. He should be able to address this topic.
Okay. Sounds
Chief.
good.
Over to you, Chief.
Okay, it looks like we may be having some difficulties connecting with the chief. It's my understanding that this is going to be something rather similar to what has historically been done at the Wright Museum. We're not going to host that event at the Wright Museum this year. So the fire department has taken on the task of having a memorial event for September 11th. I believe they're going to have a lot of the similar speakers, and that's about it that I'm aware of.
Okay, we'll open the public hearing. Anybody in the audience that would like to comment or ask questions? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Board members, do we have any questions or comments?
I have a question, and I'm assuming that there has been conversations with the library to use their parking lot for the apparatus.
I see the chief.
He's on the line. He's giving us nod.
Okay, that's my only question.
I saw that too, and it kind of, well, I don't know if it really raised concern or not, but I know that the library just had a fresh layer of pavement put on top of it recently. The previous layer that was on there was damaged by a large truck that had maneuvered on it and stuff and turned up some of the pavement. So I think I just had a little bit of a concern being, the size of our apparatus there and the, depending on which trucks they are out there, moved over there, if there would be any damage to the, any thought was put into damaging the new pavement or any thought to that process there.
So the chief has a sign up, said the librarian said it was okay to use the lot. I guess, Brad, I would have to rely a little bit on you on this one. Yes, if we had an extremely hot day, that could be problematic. We can have a conversation with Dave Ford as well, to get his feelings as to the vulnerability of the freshly laid asphalt.
I think that'd be wise. Kind of I was looking for is kind of get Dave's input on that and stuff. I think that'd be good, and I'd be good with obviously whatever he came up with for an answer. So I think that'd be good just to reach out and ask. Any other questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the temporary event permit for Fire Department to host 9/11 Memorial, September 11th, 2020, from 10 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. at the Public Safety Building, 251 South Main Street.
Second.
Motion is second on the floor. Any other discussion?
My only comment would be, I'm assuming that he will follow all the Governor Sununu's COVID-19. That's the only thing we have said to other people, but I think he knows that.
Yep, a good point to bring it up, get it in the minutes anyway. That's good. Any other comments?
The chief gave you a
Thumbs up. Okay, I'll do a roll call vote. Linda?
Yes.
Dave Senical?
Yes.
Dave Bowers?
Yeah.
Paul O'Brien?
Yes.
And Brad Herron votes yes also. Thank you. Next on our agenda is public input, limited to 3 minutes per person, not to exceed 15 minutes total. Do we have anybody in the audience that would like to speak with us at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on to our bulk vote. We have weekly manifests in here from August 21st and 28th. Intent to cut wood up on Trotting Track Road and Stoddard Road. And actually, that's it for our bulk vote this week. I'd entertain a motion on that bulk vote.
So moved.
Second,
Motion and second to approve the bulk vote. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Linda,
yes.
Dave Senical,
Yes.
Dave Bowers,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
and Brad Herron votes yes also. Next agenda item, board appointments, which we don't have any this evening. So we'll jump down to new business. We have a application for a wedding at the community bandstand to be held on October 3rd from 1 to 3 p.m. Obviously contingent upon, actually that's just the announcement part of that. So do we have the folks on with us this evening who would like to speak to us about this?
Yes, I'm here, Samantha Dembitsky.
Okay, hi Samantha. Yeah, if you'd like to just fill us in a little bit on what you'd like to do and everything. And
Sure. So our original plans of our wedding got canceled. So we come up here every year. We are just looking to have a small get together with a few family members to celebrate our wedding until we can have our party the following year. So it'll just be a quick thing in front of the lake at the gazebo with a few people. My cousin is doing the marrying, and then we were just thinking about going downtown and getting something to eat after, just very small, casual wedding.
okay. Board members, do we have any questions, comments?
I think the only thing we have to make the annual comment that we don't close the park, that there could be members of the public.
Yep, we understand that, and we're okay with that.
Expect photo bombing.
Okay. No other questions or comments? I'd entertain a motion for this one.
I'll move to approve a wedding at the community bandstand at Cape Park, October 3rd, 2020, 1 a.m. to 3 p.m. Contingent upon receiving an insurance certificate no later than 1 week prior to the event, and all COVID-19 guidelines set forth by the state of New Hampshire are followed.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Do a roll call vote. Linda,
Yes.
Dave Senical,
Yes.
Dave Bowers,
Yes.
and Paul O'Brien,
Yes.
and Brad Herron votes yes also. So congratulations and hope for a good day that day.
Great,
Yay.
thank you guys so much.
Eat ice cream. Talk about you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, next on our agenda is the doc, the BIG grant, updated language. Do we have Mr. Ford here with us this evening to talk to us about this?
Yes, good
do.
evening, Mr. Chairman. Dave Ford is here this evening. I believe you should have an array of documents that were provided to you. And Dave will be able to speak in a little more detail and hopefully be able to answer questions which you may have.
Thank you. This is a project we've been working on for a couple of years. We all realize the age of the docks and needing to be rebuilt. They were constructed around 20 years ago. In the capital project planning and in this year's warrant article, we made a request for $120,000 cash, and we had anticipated we were going after this grant, $130,000 big boat infrastructure grant, a big grant. And we have some money in the cap reserve, about $100,000. The project was estimated at $400,000. It's about ready to go out to bid. We were hoping to get this grant settled, and it's very close to being settled. What the grant entails is it is specifically for big boats, 26 feet and above. And part of the conditions, after we got into it, we got into the final conditions, and that's what you have. It's kind of complicated, but the biggest issue is we would be looking at adding 12 spots dedicated to boats 26 feet and above. And there was a diagram that I sent out late today. I apologize. That probably should have been the original package, but that kind of shows on docks B, C, and D where those boats would be. 4 on the end of each of those docks. The slips would be painted in 30-foot slips. And there'd be signs that would be posted indicating that the money for the rebuilding of these docks was coming from a federal source, and the federal source is tax on big boats. So that it's dedicated for big boats because that's where the money came from. That's kind of it in a short. We've been working, myself, the consultant, and the state person. We've been working on this for quite some time, and this language came up. I was a little nervous. So we did pass the language on to Mark Puffer, and I believe he reviewed all the documents and provided his opinion. And with that, I think there are some questions, and I can go into questions, but I just want to give a brief overview first, make sure everyone knew where we're at with this project. And tonight, what we're looking for is to have the board understand the grant, accept the grant, have Brad Harriman as the chairman authorize the town manager to sign the grant. And at some point, we would have to sign all the documents at one time and have it all notarized. So tonight, the intent was to have the board look at this, make sure they understood what we're looking at. And now the grant, the maximum would be $156,525. It's based on a little complicated formula. So depending on where the bids came in, if they're higher, we get a higher percentage. And basically, we'd be using the project to fund the total project, but basically the money is specifically for those rebuilding of those 12 sections, which would be dedicated for the big boats.
Yes, the way I understand this, Dave, when I read through this, is that we had to, I can't remember how many of the big boats we had allotted the time around. We increased the number so that we could get up to the amount of money that we were actually looking for from the state on their grant. Is that correct?
Exactly. I backed into it, kind of figuring out how much it costs per lineal fit to get us at least 130,000. And obviously the 12 is kind of a round number. You know, it could have been 11 or 10, but we were trying to maximize the grant, and it looked like those 3 docks were the obvious spot for the bigger boats. And right now, a lot of the boats, when you go out there, a lot of them are parking, and the bigger boats like to park on the end. So it's not unusual to see a 26-foot boat on those ends as it is now.
Any other questions, Linda?
Yeah, I had, late in the day, around 2, I sent Dave a bunch of questions. And the first one I read on page 2, G, it says the town will notify the department if the dock will have to have a planned closure during the summer at any point during the useful life of the dock. Well, we close those docks for some special events. One is the boat racing. And my question is, and I think there are at least 2 boat events that we close the docks. Is that going to be difficult for us to deal with? And will we
No.
be able to close them for those events?
Yes. Yeah, they just wanted to be notified. So long as we're on record and it's an event like that, there should be no problem. The requirement is just that they're notified. They don't want to be caught by surprise saying the docks are closed or that somehow we're closing for a long extended period. If it's for a weekend, for an event like the boat museum or the boat races, it shouldn't be any problem. All they want is a notification. They don't say you can't do it. It's just notification.
So one of the things that we need to put on our forms is somehow that once we approve those, you get notified that that is going to take place. We got to make sure we don't blow that communication. So
Yep, good point.
somehow
Yep.
that. My other question was, those were the 3 docks that we were planning to expand. If we go to add an expansion onto those 3 docks, are we going to run into any problems? Because are we going to need to have more big dock space?
So the answer to the question is, this will not preclude us doing an expansion from specifically because of the grant. there is grant money if we wanted to go after it for next year for expansion, but it would have to be dedicated to the big boats. If we wanted to do it on our own and not dedicate it to big boats, we probably would have to rededicate these 12 slips to the extended one so that the big boats are still at the end. Because I'm not a boater, but again, as these boats get longer, they could get wider. And as the wider they get, then there's less space to get in deeper into the docks. So there is some concern with that in terms of, we only have 35 feet between those docks, between the A, B, C, and D docks. And if you have a boat normally at 8.5 foot of width, you would have 17 feet, so you'd have 18 feet of clearance to get in your boat. It's not too bad, but they some of the boats that get into above 30 feet could be 10 foot wide. So you had two 10-foot boats, that's 20 foot. Now you're down to only 15 feet, so it's getting a little bit. And then if there's really big boats, I didn't realize this must be special ones, 14 foot wide. That would block it up. So if we had a big boat like that come in, two of them, it would actually block the dock up. So that really hasn't been a problem. We really don't see, I've been down there this summer trying to check in and trying to measure in boats, and there's a lot of boats around 24 feet, 25, 26 feet. I think the majority are in that category. And you have a lot of small ones, and then you kind of get the real big ones. So I'm a little concerned about that. So the answer to the question was, I don't think it's going to be a problem. And we could actually go for a grant. If we go for a grant, then it would have to be dedicated to big boats. If we don't go for the grant, we could slide these dedicated slips out. I don't think that would be a problem.
Could we at some point put them on different docks? So right now, we have them on 3 of the docks. If we had some of, let's say, E and F, and we extended those, does it have to be on these 3 particular docks, or could we spread it out over our docks?
Putting the slips are kind of have to be dedicated into where the funding went. So I think at this point, they have to be within the ABCD docks, because that's where the funding is going for rebuilding.
Okay.
In the future, if we expand, I think we'd have to go to them and say, hey, we're expanding. If we don't get money from them, we just want to slide the docks in any order. I guess we could do that. It's not a question I've asked, and I could kind of dig into it. I don't see why that would be a problem. I think E-dock could be extended, but not any other one. So we could, there's 4 docks that can be extended regards to expansion plans.
Paul?
Maybe Mr. Senecal had his hand up before I did. Is that okay, Mr.
Sorry.
Senecal?
Senecal, okay. Dave?
Yep. I have some questions on page 2 as well. Up on the upper part, I guess it's section 5E, says the boats have to be at least 26 feet long. Then when you go down to, I guess, number 4, inspection of the docks. The grantee will visit the docks at least every other day during the summer. Inspect the docks, ensure they are accessible to the public and in compliance with the designed use. Then says we have to keep track of it. Somebody has to have a log indicating when we went, the time of day, and what kind of boats were there, and what was parked there, the length.
That's not what it says.
Who's going to do that?
Okay, so there is a need to do documentation, and that's kind of what got me nervous, because in the past I said, well, I'll go down and take a look at it. Clearly, I can't be dedicated to that many man hours doing something like that. We do have a crew specifically doing trash and barrel pickup in the downtown area. The thought process was, and they do work on weekends also. So we're going to create a logbook, and there'll be 2 or 3 people working under Adam Tasker under the grounds division. And that logbook will be audited on a weekly basis by Adam to make sure people are going in, and we'll leave it in the truck who does the pickups. So as long as we have documentation that someone's there once every other day and does a visual inspection, and we, like Mark Puffis does, you'd make a good faith effort. So if we have a log, we write down the dates. Technically, we're not adding a person. It's going to take, some time for those people. We have a budget now for the barrel people, so I think it would be a situation. Now, where it gets sticky is enforcement. So what happens if they get there Sunday afternoon and there's a little dinghy at the end of the boat? What do we do then? So we have to develop a kind of a standard procedure, a letter saying, hey, this is dedicated to big boats. Can you move your boat? As long as we document it, if they move it or not, and then if we have problems with it, then we have to take another step. So it's an issue of how we're going to manage that. Right now, we don't have a harbor master. One of the things we talked about during docks is if we had someone out there helping people with boats, we probably get better efficiency in terms of parking the boats. But we're not proposing at adding position or adding costs to the budget to do this implementation. However, I don't think we're looking at a lot of man hours, but I think it's just a matter of having that logbook and documenting. So if we ever get audited, we can say, yeah, we make an effort.
Okay, Brad, I got one other question.
Okay, Dave?
Also on page 2, number 5B. Says the effective end date shall be March 31st, 2025. After that date, can we do whatever we want?
No, that's the contract date that they want the construction completed and the money paid out. There's another date in here that says it's a 20-year agreement. We have to agree to.
I saw that too, so.
Yes. Okay.
I didn't know which, I just need an explanation, that's fine.
Okay.
That's
Paul?
all I have right now.
Thanks, Dave. Paul, you had a hand up?
Yeah, I asked Dave Ford some questions and he responded as well. So just so that we're clear, Dave, what percent of the dock space are we going to be allocating to this program if we were to go for the bid?
So the percentage is about 24% of the linear dock space would be dedicated to the big boats. But in reality, some of that space can't be used, it can't be effectively used. So in terms of, I'd say docking space where it's literally only 24%, probably more 30% of the spots would be dedicated to the 12 spots. Those would be 30% of our total capacity. But that could vary depending if you had more bigger boats or less.
And then what I did, and Dave and I shared some emails just again to get this on the record. If you stand facing out towards the lake on the right-hand side, we have the electric boat, the fire boat, the mail boat. We have those docks are pretty well spoken for, with the exception of one or two boats. If you look at where the boat ramp launch is, and if you stand there and you look at the launch, you really can't park on either side of that because somebody has to launch their boat and they can't just let it float. So the question I asked Dave is if you factor all of that stuff in and deduct that, how much dock space after we do this purported grant, how much dock space is left? And I think the answer you said is depending on boat size, probably 30% of the docks is left.
Or more, depending if you have more boats and there's less space. And if they're not parked properly, if they leave.
I'm just talking about the running footage, just the running footage.
I didn't count. I'd have to go out there and measure those spots, but you're right. It'd be at least 30, if not a little bit more.
So in this document, it also talks about, the enforcement piece and I'm, I don't want to get into a situation where we say we're going to enforce it and we don't. We see that sometimes with land issues. It's a Sunday afternoon, to Dave's point. Somebody pulls up their 20-foot boat. We tell someone, I don't know who's going to tell them, hey, you can't park there. And what happens then? Do we call 1444? Does somebody, who do they call?
So again, there's going to be a sign up there also. If you read it says this, it'll be a painted red spot. They'll say that big boats and they say this is funded by this big grant. If we have a person and go up and say, you can't park there, he says, I don't care, I'm not going to move. Or if the big boat guy comes in and wants to complain, he's going to end up complaining to me, and then I'll have to investigate and find out. So we're not planning on doing any police action. We're just going to say, ask you to move, and we hope they're going to move.
Okay.
And if someone who comes in and complains, all we can say is, well, we did an inspection at that time, we asked them to move. If that becomes an issue, that's kind of the sticky wicket. Will we have an issue here? Are we kind of looking for trouble, or is it? So you take that 150,000, knowing that there's some strings here that might get a little sticky in the future. I was a little nervous, but then when I read Mark Puffer's email, and I think that was in your package, that made me feel much, I guess, a little easier about this. So that I think that we could go along with it, because we worked so hard to get this money. If we don't get the money, that means we may not be able to complete the project this year. We may, depending on when the bids come in, maybe we only get 3 of the 4 docks done, and then next year we'd have to look at adjusting the warrant article for the next phase of the docks, which would be the last 3 docks. And then we have this other thing. I know there was other discussion because we have the wall, and whether or not we should all bang it all out and get a bond all the whole project at once. But the directions from the selectmen has been to stretch out the projects for grants as much as possible. So we've been trying to go that. This grant looked like it was really good, and but it comes with the fine print, and that's what's I guess your decision whether or not you want to accept it or not.
Thank you,
I
Dave.
think Linda, you had your hand up next.
Yeah, if we take these spots and say they are for big boats, could we take one of our docks and say that's all for boats smaller than that? Because what you're trying, you give somebody a place to go. It seems like, okay, you're telling them not there. But if we took 4 or 12 spaces on another dock and say that for boats that are under that, it seems like that's something else we could do.
See, I tried to do that calculus, Linda.
Yeah.
That's why I asked the second question that says, if you stand at the parking lot on the far right-hand side, that first dock is occupied by the mailboat and the fireboat. The second dock is occupied by Barry. You literally don't have.
He only has one
You
small
don't have. If what you don't have is you don't have places to put these little boats. The way I'm processing this is we're getting paid to have people with big cars get preferential parking spaces. And I'm not sure I understand. And what that basically says is other boats have to kind of fend for themselves.
Well, that's why I was kind of saying, can we give them a dock also? Give them 12 spaces for boats that are under that size. That would
They
be.
don't have enough room. I don't think there's enough room.
Well,
That's what I think.
yes, how about dock A? There's plenty of space on dock A. My other question, Dave, what about we're ADA? Are we going to be compliant with all the ADA regulations? Because that's one of the things I read in here. And we have our one ADA space, I'm assuming. But
We do.
are we going to meet that requirement? Because that could be a issue.
Yeah, right. And I believe what they mean by that is are the docks accessible by wheelchair? And they are. That's what we'll make sure. So you can get to the dock with a wheelchair. We don't have we have a dedicated handicap spot on dock A, which has, obviously we had someone who was really supportive of that. And I don't know if it's been much used. I'm not sure going forward. We're the only, I think, municipal dock in the lake that I know that has a dedicated spot for handicap parking, because I don't know if there are handicap flips for boats. But that's a separate issue. I think in the grant issue, my understanding was, can you get a wheelchair? Is it accessible path to the boat itself? Not that we have a lift to get someone into it. That's a whole separate, and that's not required.
That's not part of these requirements.
Not required from ADA to have someone to get like a ramp.
From
I
the
mean,
dock to the boat.
right, it's just
Or
getting.
out of the-
Dave Senecal, you had your hand up?
Yeah. Just so you know, David, Guilford has about a half a dozen handicap parking spaces at their dock.
They do.
But, yeah.
Well,
Yep.
You know that.
And the other thing one of the things I don't like about this, we're locked into this thing for 20 years. For 20 years, we got to monitor this. We got to take care of it. Is it worth? Well, I'll make my decision when somebody makes a motion or whatever, but I think that's too long. We're setting this thing up for 20 years out from today. I don't care for that. but that's my opinion. And I don't like some of this other things, you know, telling somebody they gotta move their boat. That's like saying, hey, you people want us to come here, but now you're still telling us we gotta move our boat. We're all tied up. Go to hell. I can see that, you know, consistently. I mean, you know, you know, the police department will be down there every night or every
Oh my God.
afternoon. I mean, Crush, come on. Oh,
Paul?
I, thank you, Mr. Senical, for your, always your clarity. It's always good. Dave Ford made a point, and I wanna, at least, again, personal opinion. The question on whether we should fix our docks is separate and discrete as whether we should get this grant. That's my personal opinion. Those docks, like some other things we have, are broken. They gotta get fixed. Splinters, the prospect members, we gotta get fixed. So the question on the table is, does this grant enable us to save a couple of bucks and avoid having asked the taxpayer to do something? And I can't make up my mind when there's a motion, but my sense is there's a lot of strings on this thing, and we're going to have to then try to play Parcheesi here to try to figure out where to put the little boats, and I just it's not clear to me that this is necessarily the right thing to do.
Yeah, Dave Ford?
You know, I just ran a quick calculation, and all the time I kept thinking that we're not going to have to do anything with this grant, that we weren't going to actually spend. We're going to say, yeah, we're going to inspect it, but just be out. Like a lot of requirements that come in, it's ridiculous. You're not going to do it. You just let it go. But when they said you're going to paint the spots, and then they're looking for documentation, that's why I pushed it here, and that's why I say it for discussion. But the question is, if we spend 4 hours a week doing this times 50 weeks times 20 years times a rate of, you know, what a person would make at that point, you're looking at $100,000 a salary. I hadn't thought about that until I think Paul or someone brought that up. We weren't thinking we're going to add staff or add manpower to this. But if you add on the position, if we get into the point where now we got to make sure the little boats go into the little spots, the big boats go in the big spots, and we then going to have to deal with the potential, like Paul said, someone finally gets us and he says, well, your boat's only 25.5 feet. You can't park here. My boat's 26.5 feet. I can park here. I don't want to be in the middle of that.
I don't
So
want
there's a lot
to be thrown off the dock.
rejected the loan because of that reason. So,
Linda?
Yeah, I want to thank Dave for going out after the grant. That is, we asked for projects to be divided up into smaller segments, but I'm with everybody else. So we start saying you can't go there, and we put the man hours. One of the things was I had on my list, are we going to write new job descriptions? So that is part of their, we haven't even written up the what we're going to do if we have a problem. And when we first saw this was the area that I had the concerns, and I think others did. What does this enforcement mean when we designate those spots? And I think it just may add more problems to the docks than we already have in terms of who goes where in their boats.
I guess the question, Dave, is if we decide not to go after this grant, which is going to be 156,000, I think was the number.
the maximum, yep.
Maximum, yep. How much does that reduce us or tighten our scope down to, with the money that we do have, as far as repairs moving forward? Would that eliminate like one complete dock of getting repaired, or we're not sure yet?
That we're not, the bids, unfortunately, pressure treated lumber is skyrocketing now because of this crazy year end. And, but we are going to be looking at different materials. So the prices that we've been working off have been conservative. So I'm hesitant to say until the bids come in. That being said, we have 170,000 cash was appropriated this year, and we have 100,000 in the bank. So we have $270,000. So I'm thinking we can do at least 3 of them in the head wall concrete work that's got to get done. But maybe not the 4th one. But so it's hopefully we have some improvements, and then next year we'd have to go back. I put in an estimate for the 3 docks without a grant, but then we would have a better number now. Once we get the bids in, then I can update that and we could increase that amount to do the rest of the docks next year. So right now the budget would be short 130.
I would like to see, if we don't go through with this, use the 170,000 that was appropriated this year with our capital reserve fund and do something. I think that is well worth us, and get an idea of how what materials and stuff cost.
I think I agree. I think I'd like to see us do it at least 2, and if we can do 3 docks, I think that would be great. Then as Dave said too, that would give us a good baseline to work off of budgets for completing the work the following year to see what we'd have to raise for funds. I agree. I have some concerns about the 20-year commitment here. And this is, Paul and Dave kind of worked out some numbers here on what it would cost manpower to monitor this for 20 years. Is it worth it or not? So, I'm kind of leaning toward against it myself right now, but that's just how I'm thinking anyway. So, anyhow, Dave Senecal.
Well, I'd like to make a motion unless anybody wants some more discussion.
Well, we can have discussion after the motion too.
Well, I'm going to make a motion that we not go any further on this big application for docks.
I'll second it.
I beat you.
Okay, a motion and a second on the floor to not proceed with the BIG grant. Any other discussion? Paul?
Again, I want to underscore that I believe, for a lot of reasons, that this should not be an indication that we shouldn't be doing something with our docks. We need to fix them. They're broke. And that's my new narrative. They're broken. We need to fix them. The conversation about whether we fix everything all at the same time, create a bond, all of that stuff that I heard a few weeks back from one of our friends at EDC. That's a different discussion for hopefully for a time coming soon. But the fact that I will probably be aligned and vote not to recommend this doesn't mean that we shouldn't fix the docks. They should be fixed. They're broken.
That's not my
I don't
intent
know
with this.
anybody who said that.
No,
that we
I
aren't
do. I
gonna
just want to make sure that that we're all. I think, well, at least I'm saying that. I think we all are.
Yeah, I'm
I
not.
look at it,
It's not my
we've already-
intent to. It's not my intent
Sorry.
to stop any dock work. It's not my
And
intent
I
for
see
this
it
to
as-
happen.
Yeah, I see it as we're moving along. We did the first thing with that ramp, which we had problems with. We've got a plan. We've got an asset management plan. We put money aside in the capital reserve account. We did another 170. And if the big boat grant had been good, we would have moved forward with that. But it's not good for us. And I think we are moving forward. And whether we need to take a bigger bite of the apple or not, I think is something we can look at as a board. But I feel we're moving forward and have over the last so many years to get those docks in better shape.
Yeah,
I agree.
Dave,
I'm on board with you guys.
I wasn't questioning your motion other than to not approve this. I wasn't questioning anything else.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think we're just looking for kind of consensus that the whole board's on the same page, and we do want to fix the docks. We want to spend, money this year on it and get as much as we can done, and then look at next year to do some more. So I think we're all in agreement with that. Any other discussion? We'll have a roll call vote. Linda? This is to
Yes.
support the motion to not go for the BIG grant. So Linda, yes.
Yes.
Dave Senecal?
Yes.
Dave Bowers?
Yeah.
Paul O'Brien?
Yeah.
And Brad Harriman, yes, also. Jim?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just want to make a statement. First of all, I'd like to thank both Dave and Matt Sullivan for all the work they've done on this grant. There was a lot of effort, a lot of time put to this. And also remember, budget committees, CIP committees are always asking, have you researched grants? We've done that. And I think one of the takeaways on this one is, while they're out there, sometimes the benefit isn't worth the reward. So I just want people to keep that in the back of their minds. Thank you.
Yeah, no, good point. I want to thank Dave also for all the work that you did on this along with Matt and stuff, and even Mr. Pinio and stuff too, to bring this all forward, check it all out and everything. It's you know, we don't know until we get into it whether it's worth it or not. So yeah, Dave, you wanted to make a comment?
Yeah. One of the things, I'm going to have to go back to the agency and say that we've unfortunately are not going to be accepted, and I think the reasons are pretty clear. The expansion of the docks, which is in my mind not as critical because it's not existing infrastructure, and my focus has been all existing infrastructure. So I've actually been taken off the long term. I know it still is in the plan. Matt's keeping it in the plan. If we do expand, the same situation would be available with the dock. Big grant could be available for it, but it would still have all this mess with it. So at this point, I'm going to reject it and say, right now, we're not going to reapply in the near future. And then just know that it's out there for if someone is going to pick up the boat expansion, the dock expansion, grant money would be there at a higher rate because it would be dedicated 100% to big boats, if that's what you wanted. But that's, at this point, I will call state and tell them tomorrow, and we will just keep focusing on getting the job out to bid, and hopefully we'll get good results and get as much done as possible. At the same time, we'll be working with the CIP committee, the Selectmen, and the budget committee on the warrant article for next year, knowing that the numbers might change depending on what the bids come in.
Okay.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Dave. Okay. Next on our agenda is the Popwell Ice Arena protocol. We have Christine with us tonight.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I believe Christine is here. Late this afternoon, Christine did receive some updated information based on a call that Parks and Rec had with Governor's Task Force. So you should have received that document about 4 o'clock or so this afternoon. With that said, I'll hand it over to Christine and Justin.
Thank you. Yes, I got a request via email through the Governor's Task Force for us to attend a meeting this afternoon. And this was because of what has recently transpired with other other rinks in the area. In New Hampshire per se, different things that have happened. And because of that, they wanted some clarification for the CDC guidelines, as well as the universal guidelines for all New Hampshire different events. So they actually went over it line by line with us. We were able to ask some questions because Justin and I needed some clarity for a couple of items that we were unsure about. So we took that information. I also had reached out to other rinks, Dover, Manchester. I think we reached out to Keene, different rinks in the New Hampshire that were municipal rinks to kind of see where they were at and what they were doing. So in the packet, hopefully you all had a chance to look at it, but if not, you still have time to look at it. This is a work in progress. I feel like with guidelines coming down the pipeline and more information coming through the news, this is obviously going to be a work in progress constantly. We'll be reevaluating, making sure we're up to date with everything. But we went through the whole document. I know that we did approve it the last time, but we just went through to make sure. I think there were some for screening questions. We just had to verify there was a couple additions to that. You know, taking everything into consideration and then specifically looking at Pop Whalen Ice and Art Center and seeing the size of the facility we have, the amenities we have and kind of scaling it to what works for our facility. So there are the guidelines from the governor, but we ultimately have to take it and do what works for the facility to make it safe for everyone. We have come to the conclusion that face coverings are going to have to happen anytime you're not on the ice. And that is in the, on the bench as well. They did say, you know, if we were to able to social distance on the bench, Justin and I walked around the rink, we kind of looked at it. It is going to be tough to do that, just where the benches are located. In the spacing, there's some fire exits there, there's a step down. So we just felt like there's a lot of risks to do that. So we think just making sure that everyone has a face covering while they're on the bench. Another thing is spectators. So I know Linda had kind of wanted to know what is the capacity of the rink. That is something we're currently working on, because in our mind, we went through and we were looking at how many spectators could actually be there. And so right now, when we figure out the benches we have and social distancing them, it's about 12 people. And in hockey world, usually you have everyone in the lobby, but you can't congregate in the lobby. So anyone who is a spectator will have to be in the rink. So could we line them up against the glass? That is one option. And we're kind of discussing it with our staff, and maybe, you know, looking to Jim too, we can clarify it a little bit, because part of it is the walkway where the glass is, people are walking. And one of the things is it wouldn't be a big deal during practices, but when we go to games, we have an alternative plan of one team will enter one way to go to the locker room and one team will exit the other way. So there could be some crossover. Justin and I talked about it. We think there is some ways to negate that problem a little bit. So we're kind of still working on that. So I don't have any hard numbers for you because it is a work in progress. We want everyone to feel comfortable with it. And ultimately we are pushing people to that live barn because they can watch it online. So they'll be able to see everything online, which will be safe for all. So we're still working on that. Cleaning protocols, just following the guidelines, ordering the things that we need to make it go as quickly and safely as possible so we can get everyone out. And then we went through specifically, so we did pull some stuff out of the teams and program general guidelines because we felt like there were some duplicated things. We kind of meshed some things together and we made it flow a little bit smoother. So it's like when you enter the rink, what's happening and so on and so forth. And then, you know, following all these guidelines. And then when we get to the game protocol, it's everything we discussed in this section plus the game protocol. So it's just the only thing that's different than games is the fact that there are locker rooms in play. One thing we discussed today, a lot of you are familiar with the Pop Wheel and Ice Arena. So when you're looking straight on the building, to the right, you have that dirt parking lot. To the left, you have to go up to Abenaki. What we're going to be proposing is shutting that gate so you can't park in that parking lot. And we're going to push everyone to that front of the building and to the dirt parking lot for parking. That would then leave that side parking lot open for them if they have to do warm-ups. And also it helps us because there is a side door there. We're asking everyone to go through the front door. That side door is primarily going to be an exit for people so we can have one-way traffic going in and out. So it will help people not coming, trying to get in the side door, knocking on the door to come in, because we really want everyone to enter the building the same way. So we feel like that's a good move. When Abenaki opens, we're still going to do something with the side. There's like 4 spots on the side of the building that we could cone off and almost have a makeshift locker room outside. So what we're proposing is people will come, they can put skate guards on the bottom of their skates. We'll put a couple benches out there so it's social distancing. In inclement weather, we can throw up a couple easy ups, and then that is like an extended locker room per se for them to at least put their gear on and then enter the building so they're ready just to go right on the ice. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is not have as many people in the building at the same time and try to get people in and out as quickly as possible. Public skating is not to happen right now per governor's orders. And then eventually when that is lifted, we'll see, we're looking at whether we do reservations or something, definitely something either with season passes or something What we were discussing is we really want to make sure whoever's in the building, we know who's in the building. So right now with the teams using the building, they have rosters, phone numbers, they know everyone using it. So we wouldn't have necessarily for a public skate, like a drop-in of a random person we didn't know. It would be somebody who is registered, that we had their information. So if anything was to come down the pipeline, we would be able to contact everyone. Private rentals will be handled case by case. Tournaments, that's case by case and subject if they are allowed. And then we're not doing concessions, obviously. Learn to Skate has little, it's part of the youth hockey program, but it has a couple things in there, restrictions, and then just skate sharpening. We did add the USA Hockey had that helmet clear shield. So that might be an option for some of the youth hockey players. So we did add that to it. The game day protocols are just explaining the locker room procedures. And that warm-ups will be held outside. And then on that last page is actually a waiver that I created, which we do need to have checked over by town council. But it was one that I kind of got some assistance from another recreation department that they're currently using. So it just might be something we should all look at to see if that is something we would like for every user to sign in order to come into the facility. And I think that's it, unless Justin, do you have anything that I might have missed?
No, I think you covered most of it. I think the big takeaway that we got from the phone call today was they're going to be looking to make sure that all the protocols are being followed. So there were a few things. I know the masks on the bench was one thing that we were wondering how that was going to work, but I specifically asked that question to them, you know, do masks need to be worn on the bench by players? And they made it pretty clear that if they're not socially distanced 6 feet apart, they need to have masks on. So I think other than that, I think our protocol lines up pretty closely with what they have. Most of you know, Pop Whalen is not very conducive to social distancing, just the way it's kind of set up. So we definitely have some challenges that other rinks may not be facing, but I think we have a good plan in place, and by the time we open, I think we'll be ready to go. It'll take a little bit of help from everyone, but I am confident that we can do it.
All right, thank you, guys. Board members, any questions? Linda?
I just want to make some comments. I want to thank them. I find this edition of the guidelines superior to what we had before, and that took some work. You know, even with my reading, trying to get this from that guideline and this from the other, it's hard to put it all together. And I think both of you have done a real nice job getting it together. And I'm pleased. It will definitely change. And it's important that we get hockey up, we get Pop Whalen up and functioning. Paul has seen the same thing, a document that you gave us for the number of people who in a year use Pop Whalen is 65,000 people. And that's a lot of people in our community using this facility. So I'm pleased with what you've done. And I think it will, it'll get us started on the right path, and we can make adjustments if we need to later on.
Anybody else have any comments or questions?
I echo Linda's comment. I think Christine and Justin, you've done a great job. This is a lot of moving parts here. And I think you've been patient and you've been persistent, and those are two good things to do. So thanks for what you did.
Nicely said.
Okay, yes, I agree. Thank you guys for all the work you did in this. I was pretty impressed with the document you had originally come out with, and then I saw the email this afternoon that came out late. And there were some tweaks to it from what the conversation with the governor's task force was, but you guys had a lot of those things already nailed down. So, you were, commend you guys for being on top of, on all those things there. So, okay. So we'd like to have
one question, Christine, because Jim says he likes this, but Christine, do you like green bean casserole?
I do, as long as it's frustrating.
That's an inside joke. Never mind. I'll log off now. Thank you.
That's not on my agenda. Where is it?
Okay, I'd entertain a motion to approve amending the Popwell and Ice Arena protocols.
So moved.
So moved.
A motion, and
Second.
Linda, would you be a second on that? Well, thank you. Any other
Absolutely.
discussion? Seeing no other discussion, we'll have a roll call vote. Linda,
Yes.
Dave Senical,
Yes.
Dave Bowers,
Yeah.
Paul O'Brien,
Yes.
and Brad Harron votes yes also. Thank you, Christine and Justin,
Thanks,
very
CC.
much, and good luck moving forward.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, next is we getting into budget season again. We got some dates to take a look at.
Be still my heart.
Do you like bean casserole, Paul?
No, there was a Christine posted something out on the www. Yeah, that said, what don't I like? And I said, green bean casserole. And Jim says he loves it. So I don't know. Judgment's a funny thing. That's the way I look at it.
Okay.
What do you got, Jim? What are our dates?
So we're right in the part of starting the department budget reviews right now. We have in front of you some proposals for dates to begin department budget reviews with the Board of Selectmen. We asked Amy to get this together so that we could at least get an eye on it. We don't necessarily need to make decisions this evening, but this is what we are proposing for a schedule. Looking for your feedback.
I don't know about the rest of the board here, but I'd be willing to at least, mark off maybe at least 7 of these meetings. We typically need about 7 to 9. If you guys are comfortable doing that, we can go through these and pick out dates that we think would work, and we can always adjust them later on. So, is everybody good with that?
Whatever we need to do to get a good budget. I think we're all in the same space. We'll pitch in and do whatever we can for you, Jim.
I guess my feeling is there any date here right now one of us knows will not work?
Can I just let you guys know that October 12th is Columbus Day?
I was gonna
Okay.
I was
say,
just going to point that out.
Yeah.
Okay, let's poke that one out.
oh, we should just go with the numbers we have and see where we stop. Generally what we've done in the past, so. As long as Jim has all of his stuff together and we get our booklets.
So, yeah, I guess the takeaway I have right now is if anybody has a conflicting date, please let me know ASAP, or Amy know, let both of us know, I guess, and we'll make the required adjustments from that point. And hopefully by the 29th of October, we'll have a budget that you guys will be able to hand over to the budget committee.
All right, it sounds good. The only suggestion I would make is if we could try to avoid the back-to-back nights, but if we can't, that's fine too. But if we can get them in on and get at least an evening off in between would be nicer. That'd be my only comment. So
I would agree with it. Duly noted.
And I
He's
think
gonna
the
be-
other thing is we've tried not to have 3 in a week. We've tried to stay to 2 as much as we can.
2 works a lot better.
Yes, that's my feeling.
Are these gonna be all virtual meetings or are we gonna try to meet in the town hall?
That's a point that we can have a discussion on. Right now, we still have the authority to operate under this mode. But if the Board of Selectmen wants to meet in person to hold budget committee meetings, we can certainly do that and set the Great Hall up in such a manner that we have like CIP, which promotes social distancing.
But we should do it so it's in person and virtual. To give the two options.
Correct. If we were going to do a virtual format, we would, or a in-person format. I agree, Linda. It would be a hybrid model.
Thank you.
Leave it at that we'll review these. We'll let Jim know any of these that we have a conflict with, and yeah, we'll start scheduling some of these in.
And just to back up on Paul a little bit, if we do meet in person, I assume Paul's going to be making green bean casserole one of these evenings for dinner, correct, Paul?
No, it's not kimchi. I'll bring kimchi, because I know you love that too.
Bring some
Well,
pizza.
if we go hybrid, then we have the decision, do we want to have people make meals or not? You know.
Or Linda buys takeout for everybody.
Thanks, Paul. And you're gonna give us a 3-course dinner.
There you go.
Okay. Next on our agenda is other business. Linda, do
I
you have
have
something for us this evening?
I do. I sent you this morning, all of you, an email, and I forwarded you the town manager's performance evaluation form that we used last year. I forwarded you the Board of Selectmen's goals for Jim for 2020. And I also, 2 pages from our contract with Jim. And what I would like us to do, I would like the board to review the form, and if there are any changes, to be able to discuss them on September 16th. Have all board members complete their evaluation by October 1. And after the regular board meeting on October 7th, to go into non-public and have the board talk over their reviews and decide on the salary for Jim for 2021. And then on October 21st, and those 2 meetings are after board meetings, not after budget meetings, that we would sit down and go over Jim's evaluation and work on his 2021 goals. Anybody can change any of those dates, but we have made the commitment to get the town manager's salary in the budget and have it done by the 1st of December. And this will give us plenty of time. It would, if we follow the schedule, we would be able to put it in the budget before we send it over to the budget committee. So it seemed like we had the time to do it. So I'm just putting that out to the board to see if that will work.
Works for me.
Thank you, Linda.
Okay? So you're
Anybody
gonna
else
take
have any
the
other business?
form and let us know if there are changes you want to the forms by our next meeting.
Okay, do we have anybody else? Paul?
Jim, are you going to talk about the Libby numbers coming in, or the fact that we got the, are you going to do that?
So that was going to be one of my town manager report items, is requesting for the trustees to be able to meet to discuss those numbers.
Yeah, so we need to get that done before we take it to the CIP. We're kind of in a, so we got that. I got a phone call, this unrelated to the Libby. I got a phone call the other day from Senator Bradley. Senator Bradley told me that Wolfeboro was not selected for any of the CARES money. He didn't know why. I asked him because I think we're owed an answer as to why. I'm going to write a letter and I'm going to put it in the Granite State News. It is, hopefully it will be viewed as factual, but most importantly in that letter, I want to thank the people out on Village Corner and Browns Ridge Road. I want to thank the people over on Chick Bickford and Stoneham Road. I want to thank Barry. I want to thank Jim and Matt. I want to thank a whole bunch of people because we were given 10 days to come up with a bid. And we produced a bid for over 8 miles of infrastructure. We put together 300 pages of documents, affidavits, and we did that in 10 business days. In the state of New Hampshire, 68,000 people do not have broadband. They don't have it at all. They can't even buy it. The state has now awarded $14 million of the 50. 72% of the bid money is going unspent. It's not going to be used. 72%. And they're going to serve 4,400 to 4,500 people. 64,000 people in the state will still not be able to get on the internet. And I'm just going to park it right there by saying I think we probably let our citizens down, and I feel bad about it because the people out on our neighbors spent a lot of nights getting letters, just a lot of work, and I don't understand why we didn't prevail, and I hope that we find out why so we can get better next time. That's principally what we want to do. So that's that. I have a next steps call with the two carriers. I just want everybody to know that this morning, the parent company of Atlantic Broadband was put into a hostile takeover situation by a company out of New York. I don't know what that's going to imply for us, but I'll keep us all posted. And one thing I would like to, just as other business I'd like to talk about is, I think that we, the board, need to contemplate getting together for some working sessions. We have a lease coming up at the train station. We have a community center down on Lerner Street that we need to probably have a discussion about at some point. Electric utility building that we raised some money for last year that we have to have a discussion about at some point. And working sessions are not to make decisions, but they're to start pulling things together. And I just feel like I want to get more connected to those issues. And I think the best way to do that would be a working session. So I'd just like to park it up there. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything? I have one quick item here. Last night's planning board meeting, we voted to establish a lighting committee for the town. It's going to consist of 2 members of the planning board. We're going to ask for 1 member for the Board of Selectmen and then 2 public members to be on this board. Mission statement right now is that the Planning Board Lighting Committee will make recommendations to the Planning Board and Board of Selectmen for a clear and consistent vision for lighting in the town of Wolfeboro on public and private property. They're going to basically do some reviews and kind of come up with some suggestions, stuff like that. So the reason I'm bringing this up is we want to try and establish this at our next meeting. I didn't know if there was a member from the Board of Selectmen here that would want to volunteer to be on this committee. And if not, we could see if we can coerce one to be on the committee. So. I don't know if this tickles anyone's fancy here that would be interested in this, or just kind of put it out there. So.
I can tell you one thing, Brad, I know what they're trying to do and I'm not in favor of it. So if you want somebody with an open mind on this particular item, it's not me.
Okay.
Okay.
Brad, I've generally stayed away from anything to do with planning because of Roger's business.
Right.
So I just think that I'm better off to keep miles away from that. So I guess it's up to the 3 that are left.
I pass.
Oh, come on, Paul, you brought it up.
Hey, Brad,
Yeah.
maybe you should just keep on being the board's representative.
That sounds
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, no, I didn't know if somebody else really wanted to do it. I mean, I would do it.
Okay.
Kind of keep an eye on it and stuff, and in Dave's mind there, kind of keep an even keel going, put it that way. So, okay, so I'll represent the board on that if you guys would like me to.
Just bring back
That's Yep.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you,
Yeah, you're
Brad.
welcome.
Thank you, Brad.
Okay, do we have any other business here? If not, we'll get into our committee reports. Linda, we'll start with you.
Okay. I have gone to 2 or 3 CIP meetings with Paul. I only once sat in as a regular member. The rest of the time I go as an alternate. Wolfeboro Waters Assessing Subcommittee. I went to a meeting last week. The Special Events Committee is moving forward and is planning of last night Wolfeboro 2020. I went to a special meeting of the EDC, and I was with Jim to do interviews for the finance position. And Jim and I met today with the chamber to look at what they were looking for in their lease. I've also attended today my child care group, and tomorrow there will be a press release coming out in which it will inform the public that there's still some openings in certain groups at the Wolfeboro Area Children's Center, that the Wolfeboro Cooperative Nursery School has a few openings, and Camp Sentinel in Tuftonboro is willing to do a remote program and childcare for working families. And that's all going to be in the paper. We're now starting to look at, are there any funds available to help pay for childcare and remote learning in the hybrid situation, and also if the school district has to go to remote. Great working group, and we're moving right along. So look for that press release in the paper. And that's all I have.
Linda, Chrissy and I gave some money to Amy Muccio for general funds to the town of Wolfeboro, a number of thousands of dollars. So there's some money you can tap into there.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
That we don't want any publicity on it though.
No, we won't.
But you
Just
just
went
got
out over
some.
the World Wide Web, dude.
Okay, Dave Senical.
Yeah, I've been to 2 police commission meetings. One was a regular meeting, and today's meeting had to do with their budget. It was quite extensive. There were 2 fellows there from the budget committee, all the police commissioners, the chief and the captain. And basically, without their 100 series, as far as non-union people, their budget was up approximately 5%. The big thing that got discussed, which I think we've discussed before, was how many cruisers are they going to get? And are they going to purchase them, or are they going to lease them? They had numbers there for leasing, which most of us were pretty, kind of surprised. 6 and 7% interest on leases seemed pretty high to me. And they had numbers there for a complete vehicle, everything in it, delivered to their door for X dollars. I think it was around $57,000 for a complete unit with everything in it. I mean, everything. Radios, lights, the whole 9 yards. So, and the leasing agreements, well, they were kind of a little bit all over the place, in my opinion. So whether it was 1, 2, 3, or more was one price. And they had them for 2 years, 3 years. So that will be, they're going to do some more research on that. By the time it comes budget time, they'll have should have some solid information on that. But it was interesting. It was pretty out and out, that's for sure. No punches pulled today anyway. So I thought it was a good meeting.
Good.
That's all I have.
Good.
Thank you, Dave. Dave Bowers.
What's the question? What am I voting on? Hello?
Yeah, it came through a little fuzzy to me, that's all.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Any question for me?
No, committee reports.
Oh, committee reports, no committees this time.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Paul?
Yeah, I've been at CIP several times. Linda filled in for me while I was goofing off one time. I think it's going along well. We're going to look at spreadsheets tomorrow, which ought to be fun. Wolfeboro Water's communications team has built their work plan. The budget's in. We routed that. I think, did we route it through you, Linda, or did we give it directly to Matt? We'll get it to you too, because you wanted to collect it.
Yeah, Matt had.
All right, cable franchise team has met several times. We've completed our data request for Atlantic Broadband, and we also have completed a survey that we're going to sit with Brenda and figure out how we get it into the electric bills. I'm going to have a call with Atlantic on Friday, and I'm going to have a call with Charter Communications next week. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. The last night at a planning board meeting, public hearing at Brewster Academy was in. They're going to do a renovation of Rogers Hall, which is their old gymnasium building there. That was continued on to our next meeting. And we had a Friends of Libby Museum meeting, which was pretty much a work session revising our bylaws there and updating those. And that was it for me. So next on our agenda, the town manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think you hit everything that I did with CIP and various meetings here and there. The big takeaway right now is, I believe, either yesterday afternoon or this morning, you received the updated numbers from Alba Architects regarding the Libby Museum. We need to sit down and have a conversation about that. So I'd be asking to schedule a time for the Libby trustees to meet.
How about next Wednesday?
That's exactly what I was looking at, the 9th of September. That will be right after we spent the full day at the polls.
Great. Awesome.
6:30.
30.
Okay.
Polls
That work for everybody?
close 8
That work?
or 7, whatever it is.
This is the next day.
Polls close.
This is the next day.
The day after. So 6:30 on the 9th, September 9th at 6:30 p.m.
And just for the public, the
Okay.
election is on the 8th of September from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. You can come in person. If you do not want to come in person, you can go and get an absentee ballot. The application is online. You can talk to Pat Waterman and get that. There are a large number of absentee ballots already in.
Yeah, I think I heard the
That
number.
was my
from,
mistake.
I think Randy Walker this morning said something like 800 absentee ballots had been sent in.
Okay, so Jim, you'll have Amy notice the meeting then for the 9th?
Yeah, I'll ask her to get that taken care of tomorrow. And that's all I
Okay.
have for Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I see Kat's on with us here. Did you have something you wanted to ask about us before we get to the end of our meeting, Kat?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if I could be at that meeting as well.
Why not?
Yes.
Can you
Why not?
repeat that?
Sorry?
Can you repeat
Kat asked
that?
if she could join us at the meeting with the as trustees of the Libby next week.
Well, certainly.
It's a public meeting.
Sure.
All right.
I think
And
we're
then,
all,
okay, and that's awesome. That's the night before our CIP meeting, and just because I'm still getting familiar with the process, are we making a decision about what we're trying to bring forward to the CIP meeting in that meeting next week?
I think we're going to try to get some clarity as to what direction we're taking. If
Okay.
Jim, I think, needs to I don't know whether we can move that, that CIP date out a little bit. I think it's probably unfair to all parties to make a decision at 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and then at 8 o'clock the next morning, get all buffed up and ready to give a presentation.
Yeah, it'd be a little tough.
Might be, that might not be useful.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe
That'd be good if we could.
I'll shovel it around a little bit. We'll take it up tomorrow.
Okay, awesome,
Yeah,
thank
that'd
you.
be good if we could do that, Paul.
Yeah, I think the world will not end if we don't have a CIP meeting on the next day.
Jim, for election day, I wonder if you could arrange to have some pizzas delivered. This we don't normally do this at lunch, and then also at 6 o'clock. Maybe 10 boxes of pizza or 8 boxes of pizza. And I'll take care of it, but without publicity. Okay.
I don't think that's
Thank you, Dave.
I
Linda,
believe the town clerk has that all taken care of.
I don't think that's permitted.
It is permitted. That's what we've always done.
No,
No,
I think you
I
can
have
bring your own
to,
food.
if I'm making chocolate chip cookies, I have to put them in individual packets. So if we're in COVID, Dave, only way we could do that if they were all wrapped in individual wrappings. The pizza slices.
Yeah, I think Pat wanted
one
them,
pizza,
I think
a
Pat
whole
wanted
pizza
them
per
brought
person.
weeks ago.
That's good, Brad. Good one.
Like that?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Let's send it to Brad.
Okay. All right, moving on. Questions from the press. Alyssa, are you still with us?
I am. I have a question. At a meeting, several meetings ago, Nancy Hirschberg asked the board if they approved of the idea of having residents have the option when they get their electric bill to round off their bill to contribute to the Warmth and More Fund. And I don't know if that's been done. I have received an electric bill since then, but I didn't notice anything. And I was just wondering where that stands. Anyone know?
Mr. Chairman, I think I can answer that. Right now, we frankly haven't had the time to be able to address that issue. It is on the list of items.
Okay.
We just got to figure a time to get to it.
Okay, thank you.
I think there also has to be a change in the computer program to do it. I think it's just not a simple thing to do.
Okay.
Yeah, Roundup is you have to tweak the software. You're right, Linda.
Anything else, Alyssa?
No, that's it. Thank you, Brad.
Okay, thanks. Public input. Second round of that. Anybody out there with public input has questions or comments for the board? Seeing none, I guess I'd entertain a motion to go into non-public.
So moved.
So moved.
Motion and a second to go to non-public. Do a roll call vote. Linda?
Yes.
Dave Senical?
Yes.
Dave Bowers?
Yes.
Paul O'Brien?
Yes, sir.
And Brad Harriman, yes. We'll see you all. Mr. Pinio sent out the link to that earlier in the email, so we can all get it. We'll see you in a few minutes.